tend to overspeak a lot and then go into other directions. So without doing that, shall we? So this video is about my editing breakdown. Now to say my editing process is not consistent with the styles or the themes as per the photographers I look up to, but anyway, I was editing this photo particularly here, and I thought the before and after the editing was so mind-blowing that why not make a video out of it. So the one you see here are the streets of Toronto. Yep, I went to Toronto. Yeah, wow. It was just mind-blowing. So for a pic like this, the first of all what you do is just crop it out. Just do the alignments because OCD. The worst things of a photographer is like misaligned photos. No. Instantly better. Now first off what we have is our light panel here. So this is our exposure. I don't tweak these a lot because this pic is already underexposed. But if I increase this on the plus side, the sky is getting overexposed. So keeping it here, I would rather decrease the contrast, up the highlights because I want a little whitish on it, not the whole blue. And instead of doing this one, just check this one. What I always do is I'll go to each slider and push to positive and negative, plus and minus to see what it does. So in this case, see the picture is much more clear now on the shadow side and the highlights are not overexposed. So what I do as a smart contrast is I don't go up here with the exposure or up the contrast on the positive side. I used to do this every single photo when I was a beginner, like I'm talking like 3 to 4 years ago. Not looking at anything, contrast, boom. Now always my contrast is on the negative side, and if I want to introduce if the image is more flat and if I want to introduce more blacks into it, like the depth into it, this is the secret here, the blacks. Now moving down to the color panel, I don't usually go first for the curves because I do my color correction first depending on the mood of the image I want to. Then I do the curves, and always I have to go back up to the light curves. You're always doing back and forth here. So moving on to color, I want this image to be the the street style, the raw urban vibe. So I don't want the cool temperature. So like I'm gonna plus the temperature. See, it already looks more natural right now. And for the hue, again, sliders up and down, plus and minus all the time depending on what I like. I like it a bit on the plus side, and I don't touch my vibrance or saturation right away. So for the color part, the first thing I do is I eliminate the colors that I do not want in my image. A pro tip here: if you want your image to pop out, use least colors in the image. Like there should be only dominating one or two colors, sorry, in the image. So here I do not want any greens. I'll go to greens and gone. Also the blues, I do not want the blues to pop out because as I say, like blues and orange, the warm and the cold color will contrast each other. So like if you have one color popping out, so in here I will still adjust my yellow because now the image seems more of a black and white. So let's do this one, orange. I'm gonna pass the slider to the more of a hue, red side. Look at that, it's so much better right now already. You can see just by the look of it that you can already see orange and red dominating the picture. Much better, right? But it still seems dull. So now now is the time that after you've done all of your individual color corrections, now is the time to go up to vibrance, and always do vibrance first because vibrance is a smart one. This is a smarter tool I always use because if you do saturation, it suddenly looks so ugly right now. Look at that. But if you up the vibrance, somehow it works smartly and does not ruin your picture. Effects. Now, what I generally do, since I have the pro version of Lightroom CC here, what I generally do is I overall bring down the texture and the clarity of the image to smoothen it out. Also, if necessary, I would noise reduce it. For the sharpening, I have a very nice pro tip for you. Don't ever do this directly. No. Put it in the mid. Sorry, put it in the middle for a while. Now I'll show you what to do. This you can do this not on your phone, but if you have a laptop. So hold Option or Alter if you have Windows. I have a Mac. The masking tool. If you do nothing and you do masking, you'll be like, oh, nothing is happening. What is the masking tool for? Well, do this. Hold Option and now slide them up. You see that? You see that? Now this all white. This is what the the Lightroom is sharpening for. So you don't want the whole image to be sharpened. It will look beginner as fuck. It will look grainy. It will look torn apart as fuck. So you don't want to do that. So slide the masking slider more until your subject is mostly in white picture. Now it seems like all of our building, mostly our train will be in focus right now at this point. What you did is selectively sharpen the edges of your subject. Alright, now that we have gone through all of the panels, now is the time for the curves. The curves, if you're a beginner, could be intimidating, but you can always, the only thing is to do is to learn. Practice, learn. So I'm gonna lift the shadows, and typical S curve would be like this, like they would tell you to decrease the highlights, up the shadows, put a point here, drag it down, put a point here, drag it up. To my style, I like the highlights to be blown out just a tad, so it has a more pump to it. And what I do is like I put the midpoint here, drag it up a little, the shadows there, and I put a middle point, extra middle point on the shadows part, and drag that down to bring the contrast back in. So image is faded, but to bring back the contrast, this is what I did. Now, of course, if I want the video to be appropriate time, I don't have time to explain all this, but for this one, since I want the warm urban vibes, the heated vibes, I am gonna bring down the blues from the shadows. Now we have the earthy warm tone in the shadows in the buildings and the road, and just to bring back a little blue in the buildings and the sky up there, I'm gonna do this. You can go to this eye icon in each slider to see what images, what you've done so far. So like if the color correction will have the most most effect on our image right now. So if I close that one, I'll see. Let's see the overall before and after. So far, this is what we've done. Mind blowing, right? Not there yet. Typically you would be done here, but now you see this one, masking. This is where the real manipulation begins. Now I don't use the typical vignette because I don't have much control over it. So what I do is go to the masking tool, go to the radial gradient, and draw a mask all over here. This bit would be enough. Put it in the center and go and invert it. So there are a few ways you can introduce the vignette in a creative style rather than the typical vignette, because that doesn't give you flexibility. So in here, either we can do decreasing the exposure, increasing the contrast, and bringing the blacks down. Look at that. So our primary job here is to bring the eyes of the viewer to the subject. In this image is the train. So what we do is just do anything and everything in our power from the Lightroom to do that, just to enhance the depth, the blackness of it. And now you see the below, the lower part of our image is so much darker, and it draws our eyes to the center of the image. Now, creating a brush or a radial one, we're gonna select our train, our subject here, and this is the part where we enhance this the things of it. So opening the wide, opening the bringing up the exposure a little. This is where you mess around with the texture and the clarity of it, and the sharpness. I always sharpen my subjects more on the masking side, and I'm just gonna add a couple more masks here. So these are all the masks I ended up using. So on top of our all the panels and the basic adjustments and everything, this is the amount of manipulation I have done. This is what it takes. This is what makes it a step further, and every inch of the process much more interesting. So one of the things I want to show you here, come, the mask 5 in particular, if I zoom the image right now, look at this. I am turning on the traffic lights, the headlights of the streetcar. How sick is that? All I have done is mask the individual lights of the traffic lights, the headlights of the streetcar, the top banner, and the other street lights, and choose the marking, overlaying them. And all I'm doing is just sliding the exposure, increasing the brightness so it seems like the lights are on. How sick is that? So this is how far we come. Just look at this. This is always so much fun. This is always so much fun. What a change! Look at it. I'm so psyched. I'm so psyched. If you zoom in, my god, look at the details. We have enhanced the sharpening of the streetcar. The buildings are crisp. It's not distracting. I love editing photos. I love editing photos. Do you? Alright. So this is what I do. So if you liked it, let me know. Check me out on Instagram here. Listen, I'm not a sucker for likes or views or shares or anything like that. I'm just like, if you like my stuff, appreciate it, then let me know. I will be happy knowing that you liked it. So that's all I ask. And I simply appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Until next time.